And a member of this committee completely jumped the shark again. And right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a left-wing loon, and it was a time where we really need to turn down the temperature and practice some civility, said, and I quote, "Republicans have been so busy protecting pedophiles and rapists that they forgot what this committee is supposed to be about." Well, I tell you what this committee is supposed to be about.
That line wasn't just inflammatory, it was strategic. Because when you can't win the facts, you try to win the moral high ground with a headline. You don't argue the record, you smear the motive. And here's the deeper problem. Washington has learned that accusations travel faster than accountability. So the question isn't, who said the most shocking thing today? The question is, who is actually moving the ball toward truth? And who is turning a crime scene into a campaign prop? Because what you're about to watch isn't just a committee speech, it's a blueprint for how narratives get built and how reality gets buried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to share a quote with you. I thought it was interesting. "No one is above the law, and no one should be escaping accountability." And Hillary Clinton said that. And according to the LA Times, there's another quote. "No man in this country is so high that he's above the law." I agree with both of these quotes. Al Gore said that when he was a member of this chamber, Bill Clinton's own vice president. I hope every member of this committee agrees with those quotes. So we have to ask ourselves, are we a rule of law nation or are we not? When a citizen of these United States is subpoenaed by this Congress, they should comply, plain and simple, regardless of who they are. We all get accused of things, and we should do everything we can to, because accusation is nothing but that, to prove it false if it's untrue. Jeffrey Epstein was a rapist, pedophile, sex trafficker. In street parlance, he was a scumbag, lowlife, and slimeball. And some of the things that I've read in these files, he was evil incarnate. He's also dead. I didn't even know who he was until he wasn't. So why are we here talking about a dead guy? Because he was associated with powerful people, some of which are highly likely to have participated with him in some of the worst kind of criminal activity. And if they did, they should pay. They should face justice, whether they're rich or poor, famous or anonymous, mighty or meek. So is that what we're doing today? Are we pursuing justice and transparency? Because transparency makes an easier and shorter path to the truth. We should be pursuing the truth. But some on this committee and in this Congress are pursuing fame and campaign fortune and exploiting this issue, not in the pursuit of justice, but in the pursuit of raising hundreds of thousands of dollars using a false premise as a battering ram. Jeffrey Epstein, and here's the false premise, that Epstein was a creature of the political right, and they're protecting him, and he was pounding around with Donald Trump and those in his orbit. And that's why the Republicans won't release the files. Now, that's incendiary, but is it true? Or is it just a cheap, woke fantasy? Well, here's the facts, and the facts matter, so let's look at tail of the tape. How many confirmed visits to the White House? Under Bill Clinton, there were 17. Jeffrey Epstein visited the Clinton White House 17 times. How many times did he visit the Donald Trump White House? 0. How about documented political donations? 21,000 to the Clintons, 0 to Trump. Documented non-Clinton political contributions. 118,000 to the Dems, 18,000 to the GOP, for a total of 89% to the Democrats and the Clintons, 11% to the GOP. Now to the matter at hand. Epstein files released by the oversight Democrats from 2019 to 2023 when they were in charge of this committee, 0. Epstein released files by the oversight Republicans from 2023 to present, 53,000 pages. Epstein files released by the Biden Department of Justice in the 4 years he was in office, again, 0. Epstein files released by the Trump DOJ, 2025 to present, 125,000 pages. And a member of this committee completely jumped the shark again. And right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a left-wing loon, and it was a time where we really need to turn down the temperature and practice some civility, said, and I quote, "Republicans have been so busy protecting pedophiles and rapists that they forgot what this committee is supposed to be about." Well, I tell you what this committee is supposed to be about, Mr. Chairman, about transparency and truth. And on this matter, the Republicans have led. and we produced results. And the Democrats have done squat and bumpkiss. For the record, that kind of incendiary rhetoric, while it may make headlines and make people famous, or perhaps better stated infamous, and raise loads of woke cash, maybe even get you invited to Hollywood parties. But at what cost? Those kind of lies create division and damage, and they're ludicrous, absurd, lazy, and perhaps, worst of all, unoriginal. And I don't think it's going to translate much to Journey to the Upper Chamber. I hope it doesn't translate to that. The Trump administration and Republicans on this committee and on this issue have served Lady Justice by a count of about 178,000 to 0. So the Clintons should come in, honor the subpoena, and testify. And you know why, Mr. Chairman? In the pursuit of truth.
Now let's confront the reality head on. What you just watched was not a defense of Jeffrey Epstein. It was the opposite. It was a demand that power stops being a shield. But here's what made this moment explode. It wasn't the condemnation of Epstein. Everybody can say the obvious. He was evil. The real fight was over something more uncomfortable. Who gets to control the story of accountability? Because notice what Fallon did, step by step. First, he opened with a trap made of the other side's own words. No one is above the law. That phrase is supposed to be a moral weapon, but he turns it into a standard. And that matters because in Washington, standards usually apply until they apply to someone famous, until they apply to someone protected, until they apply to someone politically useful. Then he pivots to the core claim. If Congress issues a subpoena, compliance is not optional. Not for a random citizen, not for a billionaire, not for a former president, not for a former Secretary of State, and that's where the narrative war begins. Because the moment you insist on one rule for everyone, you threaten the entire culture of special exemptions. Now, did you catch what he accused Democrats of doing? He didn't just say, you disagree with me. He said, you're exploiting this for fame and fundraising. That's the moral framing, not a policy argument, a motive argument. And why does that matter? Because if the public believes this is all theater, then nobody pays a price. Not the guilty, not the enablers, and not the institutions that failed to protect victims in the first place. Then came the most viral part, the protecting pedophiles line he says another member threw out. That's not oversight. That's gasoline. And here's the part people miss. When you say something like that, you're not trying to uncover truth. You're trying to brand the other side as inherently evil, so you never have to prove anything. You never have to show your work. You never have to deal with inconvenient details. It's moral grandstanding as a substitute for due process. Now, Fallon tries to answer that with what he calls the facts: visits, donations, page counts, releases. And you should be sharp here. Politicians love scoreboards because scoreboards feel final. But real accountability isn't just numbers on a sheet. So here's the fair takeaway. If your claim is Republicans are hiding the files, the burden is on you to prove it. Not with vibes, not with insinuations, not with a viral one-liner. And if your claim is Democrats did nothing, you better be ready to show receipts, because this issue is too serious for partisan math games. But zoom out. What's the pattern? When it comes to Epstein, an issue tied to victims, to elites, to institutions that looked away, Washington keeps drifting into the same bad habit, turning the public's hunger for truth into a fundraising storyline. And that's why this moment hit, because it exposed something ugly. A system where people can weaponize the worst crimes imaginable, not to deliver justice, but to win the next news cycle. So here's the question you should be asking, regardless of party. If no one is above the law is real, why is compliance negotiable for the powerful? Why do subpoenas become optional for the connected? And why does Congress suddenly get shy when the cameras stop rolling? This isn't just about Epstein. It's about whether America still believes rules apply evenly, or whether accountability is just a slogan you deploy against your enemies. And what happens next will show you why. Because the next step isn't a viral quote. It's whether the House actually follows through, and whether the same people who demand justice on TV will demand it when it's politically inconvenient. If you want more breakdowns like this, focused on what was said, what was avoided, and what it reveals, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes oversight should be about truth, not theatrics. And comment below, do subpoenas mean anything anymore? When the powerful can stall, lawyer up, and walk away,